Good afternoon. We will now call this work session for April 25th, 2022 to order. And I'm going to start by reading our Who Are We statement. We are the Polk County Leadership Governance Team. If we were to pick one phrase to define us, it would be student-centered, because when we come together to work, we lean on our diverse backgrounds and experiences to ensure that our decisions are focused on providing a high-quality education for all students. The four most important things to our governance team are operating with integrity, respecting our students, staff, families, and each other, establishing a culture where our stakeholders feel valued, supported, and have opportunities for personal and professional growth, and supporting an approach of continuous improvement to ensure student outcomes. Collectively, we need to work on behalf of the children we serve and find avenues of agreement so that we can govern the district in an effective manner. There is no acceptable alternative. We will always collaborate in a respectful manner in order to enhance opportunities for each student and staff member. We will not disparage others. Our students will thrive because we will remain committed to supporting the whole child. We hope to engage and empower our students and stakeholders to create a community of lifelong learners. And with that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Hyde.
Madam Chair, members of the board, members of the staff and community, thank you very much for being here today. We'll begin today's workshop, as we have every workshop this year, with one of our local community partners. And so at this time, I'd like to bring Ms. Cynthia Haffey, Executive Director for Platform Art, Inc., up to the podium. And hopefully I pronounced your last name correctly.
You did.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So yes, I'm Cynthia Haffey, Director of Platform Art. Platform actually provides forums for art experiences, and we support the creation of public art. That is our mission. Within that process, we have a couple of programs that we always involve students, and that's, I think, why we're here today, so that I can tell you a little bit about those programs. We were incorporated in about 2006, and we started our first program for students, Platform Kids, in 2013. So this is basically an art festival for students. Much like Mayfair or Art Crawl, we do Platform Kids Art Festival. And this last year, we always do it in February, we held it at the new Children's Museum at Bonnet Springs Park. What a wonderful partnership for us. It's a great venue, and we were, both organizations were very pleased with the attendance and the outcomes, so we were thrilled. We generally have about 26 schools who participate. We have students presenting visual artwork from all over the county. We invite all public, private, charter schools to participate in this event. Of course, the public schools are the most active and most engaged. So thank you for that, and thank you especially for Nancy Puri. I think she's here today. She's a great support system for us and our go-to for help in getting this program started. So we showcase visual art, film, fashion, live music, and performance, all produced by students. So you can see some of these images where we have a theater space going on. Kids do everything from spoken word, dance, music. It's just great. And then we have a visual art exhibition generally in the same room. We do give a, oh, sorry, I was trying to, oops. Let's see, I'm trying to, forward. There it is. So a little more of the artwork. We give awards every year, first, second, and third place awards. Students get recognition. We typically give the teachers a gift certificate for art supplies. This is how we reward everyone for participating, and it's just wonderful. Also, the Children's Museum has also added a purchase award this year, so that's great. So you can see some of the visual artwork. Then we do performances, like I said, with you see all the parents there. I think the museum attendance that day was 1,000 people. Generally, they have about 400, so I think that we actually increased their attendance. They were so excited about it, and we were too. So the next component that we have, and this is a video that I won't play for you, but we started doing public artworks about 10 years ago. To date, we have about 16 public artworks. Most of them are in and around Lakeland or in Polk County. We have one in Imabari, Japan, that ended up being a cultural art exchange with Lakeland sister cities. We have one in St. Petersburg. But this was one of the first projects that we started engaging students. We have 3 sculptures that are similar to this. Let's see if I can just, Jeanette's going to kill me if I just try to fast forward through.
Honor.
So we have 3 pieces in Veterans Memorial Park that were literally designed by students. They are themed after the park themed, which is honor, sacrifice, and service. So we have these 3 sculptures there. So I hope if you get a chance to go to Lakeland, you'll be able to see those. So let's see if I can now get this to stop. Okay. This was a very important piece that we did in partnership with Lakeland Electric. It's called Tribute to Linemen. We were approached by an individual in the community who asked us to do something. Thank you. As a memorial to linemen, and we ended up producing this piece. Typically, our program is to put a call to artists out to all the high schools, and these 2 young girls submitted this concept design for that sculpture, and we selected it. We have in this case, we had an artist, Becky Alt from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. She's nationally known artist, and she's a former educator, and so she works with us in working with the students to give them an opportunity to be part of producing a public artwork. So these 3 young girls were with Kim Mortimer at Lakeland High. They won that piece. This is the piece completed in front of Lakeland Electric on Lake Mears. So it's a very prominent location. We're really proud of that. In this particular program, we gave the kids an opportunity to travel with us to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. This is pre-COVID. And we went there and put the kids to work. Literally, they met the artisans who work at the foundry as they were producing the work. And we had them, can you not hear? Okay. And we took them on a tour of the community. They looked at other public artwork. We took them to a university so they could have a tour of a university. And we showed them how to do things like mold making and sand for the mold. And they have the sand piece that they actually poured the bronze. So I'm going to jump to this piece. This is our most recent public artwork. It's a tribute to veterans of the Spanish-American War. Spanish-American War was the only war that was not covered in the Polk County Veterans Memorial Park. So we were approached by the Polk County Veterans Council to see if we could actually have a sculpture produced that would be a memorial to these veterans. And if you know a little bit about the history, we actually had 5 infantries and the 10th Cavalry of Buffalo Soldiers stationed in Lakeland prior to departing to Tampa to depart to Cuba to win the battle against Spain. So we had 2 schools were selected, 4 students from Santa Fe Catholic and 4 students from Lake Region High School, and they actually, all of their drawings, we had them do drawings of the history of the war. Platform Art had produced a video to give them a little background, historical reference, education about the war, and from the video, the students had produced drawings. So we had 8 students and their teachers, and Becky came down from Pennsylvania, and she produced a workshop for them so they could learn how to sculpt in clay. So we took their drawings, and they started working on their own drawings. This is the final piece that is now in Veterans Memorial Park. It's a substantial 7-foot-high bronze statue commemorating the veterans of the Spanish-American War. It's a remarkable piece. I hope you have a chance to go see it. It's very substantial. And we'll end with this slide. I just want to tell you about some of the variety of things that we do. One of the programs we did with an artist, Polly Zoom is her artistic name, and she's an animator. So we produced a film on the endangered Florida scrub jay. So we worked with Archbold Biological Center in south of Lake Wales and had students come in. We had 4 schools participating all the way from elementary to high school, and they produced all the images. I won't run the video today, but they produced all the images for the animation, and Paula took it, animated the film. We took the kids over to St. Pete so they could work with her to learn how to do animation, and then voila, we end up with a short animation film that the kids produced, and then we've forwarded, of course, we've shared this film and the Veterans Park film with Nancy Puri, and she distributes to the schools. So that's our program, and we just wanted to tell you a little bit about it. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. I'm looking to see if anyone's. Mr. Sharpless. Mr. Nolte. You're not indicating?
It's me.
And I was Justin.
Ms. Miller.
For one off. Hi, sorry we're having technical difficulties. I appreciate you being here today. I had no idea. And that's probably because we have so many great art students and we have so many events all of the time. But being in Veterans Park, I've seen those and not realized they were our students. So I need to do better. Ms. Puri, where did she go? She'll keep me posted on things. But this is great opportunities that we need to make sure the public knows available to our students and what great work they're doing in our community. Like the linemen, I had no idea. So I'm so glad you're here today and sharing that. And we know these opportunities are available for students, and we're making more opportunities in the arts available. I love the digital. That's the new wave. We have so many students engaged in that media. So I hope we can give them more opportunities in that as well. Thank you.
For telling me that. I think it's been a challenge. We're a very small arts organization. I think our entire annual budget is about $100,000. So for us to do these major public artworks and then involving students is just, it ends up being a passion project, if you will, and you have such talented students in Polk County. You just can't imagine. They're really remarkable. Great teachers.
No, I agree 100%. Chair, if we could possibly share the executive assistant's email, so at least they can come that way to us. We can make sure we can get notifications. Thank you.
I get your emails all the time, so maybe you can. You go to the Veterans Park area, is that you guys have done to make the community in that area. Hats off to you guys.
Signing of the Declaration of Independence. So the United States has a national effort called America 250. It will be the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And I think that they will be going state by state to each governor to see if, every state will participate in some way in this celebration. I imagine there will be, performances and things like that. But we are already working behind the scenes. This will be a 3.5-year project for us to produce a sculpture, and we are actually going to recognize Mary Catherine Goddard. She was a female printer. She owned a printing company. She was also the first female postmaster of the United States, and she printed the Declaration of Independence during a revolution, so she was quite in danger for having done so, but her name is actually on the Declaration of Independence. So we will have a sculpture of her, a figurative piece, standing at her printing press with a copy of the Declaration of Independence rolling off. And it'll be, again, a very substantial bronze work of art. So 3.5 years we'll be working on it. So, stick with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll bring up Ms. Candy Amato, Senior Director for Charter Schools. She'll do a brief introduction. Board members, before us today, we have RCMA, or the Redlands Christian Migrant Association. They operate 2 charter schools outside of Polk County, and they're looking to bring a new school here to Polk County to serve students. Ms. Amato.
Oh, there, you got it. There we go. Okay, sorry. Hi, good afternoon. So as Mr. Hyde has indicated, we do have a School of Hope who has dropped their letter of intent back in March. So under statute language at 1002.333, that is a totally different process than what we typically see with a charter application. We have 60 days to review and approve the application. So as a courtesy, their performance-based agreement, otherwise known as their contract, will come to you back-to-back in May so that we can meet our 60-day requirement set by statute. In the meantime, I will introduce Ms. Juana Brown, who is here on behalf of RCMA to share their program with you.
Thank you, Ms. Amato, and thank you all for giving us time this afternoon. This just makes it all the more inspiring that we are coming to a county that has so many wonderful opportunities for our young people. So as Superintendent Hyde, who has been so gracious and kind to us during this process. We are Redlands Christian Migrant Association. We RCMA for short, and we have been in operation since 1965. Our mission is to open opportunities for those living in communities with high-quality education. In 1965, we opened our first Head Start program and the Redlands in Miami-Dade, and it was started because farm workers were taking their children to the fields, and we quickly realized that something needed to be done to support the families. Our vision is pretty expansive. We want to be recognized as a national model in preparing children from low-income communities. We believe it's important that we don't leave anyone behind, and so we are doing this, as I said, since 1965. We started in Miami-Dade, and since then, we are in 20 counties in the state of Florida, including Polk County. We have a lovely campus here in Mulberry. And one of the things we realized is our families are being served by these Head Start programs. We have early childhood Head Start programs, which means that families with children as young as 6 weeks can leave their children at our centers and know that they have a place to be where they can continue until pre-K. But as an organization, our parents who are very involved, that is the heart of our programs, our parents said to us, it's great that in pre-K we can take the students, but then what? We need programs that are able to support our students, our learners, and so in addition to these 66 Head Start programs, we now have 6,500 children in the state of Florida. As the superintendent said, we have 2 additional charter schools. We have one in Collier County in a farm area called Immokalee, about an hour from Naples, and we have another one in Hillsborough County in a small town in Waimama, although I have to say 301 is growing to meet our small school. So we're really excited. And recently we were recognized by the Charter School Growth Fund. It's a national school venture fund on the idea of the performance of our students. They found that as a Title I school, our students had some of the highest performance, not just in the state of Florida, but we went through a rigorous process when they looked at us and compared us to national Title I programs. Our program is very unique in many ways. As I said, we sometimes charter schools get a bad rap. You know, charter schools are very selective. You hear all these preconceived notions, and we are very selective. We take the children of farm workers and migrant farm workers. They get priority in enrollment. And so we want the community's children who would otherwise be left out. If you look at our language and racial demographic, mostly Latino, mostly Spanish speakers, but we also have families from Guatemala and Mexico who have come and speak indigenous languages. So we have, I think at last count, 30-something languages. In terms of our eligibility, again, we really cherry pick. We cherry pick with the lowest of the low-income families in the community. This gives you an idea. This is actually one of our students, our families, and so most of our families live in close by to our center here in Mulberry, and they live in farm worker communities, so in mobile homes, many of them damaged in the recent hurricane, and so there's a lot of support that our families need. And this really, this is the trajectory of our students. 1965 we've now seen what we call RCMA babies go to college. This young man happened to finish architecture school. So for 58 years, we've had this transformative program for our families. Our schools are unique. We call them community schools, and that's because we believe really that it does take a village. Families we've talked about. Families are partners, but so do organizations. And I loved hearing about the arts organization because we can't do what we do without these partnerships. Our schools are also unique in we are dual language schools. What that means is that our students have to show proficiency on testing in both Spanish and English, reading and writing and communicating. We have, as I said, parent and community partnerships. We have a really strong health and wellness program. We bring doctors we are community hubs. As you can imagine, the communities oftentimes can't access service. Many of our families don't have transportation. So we bring doctors, nurses, dental programs into the school. As well as community partnerships. We talk about whatever it takes. Our schools include a robust after-school and summer program, so we have school all throughout the year. We're proud that our schools that are graduating 8th graders are graduating with high school credits. We have now in one of our schools in Hillsborough, students in 6th grade taking algebra. Our students will have taken at least algebra and geometry before they go on to high school. And also coding, which is a new requirement. So this just shows you a picture of our students. We believe in learning by doing, so we have a broadened curriculum. You see the enrichment programs. Our students can't afford to do after-school clubs and lessons, so we have orchestras, we have choirs, we have dance program, we've had visual artists. You see the whole language program. We believe that we need to serve not just the students, but their families, and we do so with nutrition program. You see flu shots here, a dental program, and we have our new principal, Danny Higgins. She's from this community. She's been knocking literally on doors in each of these communities, letting these families know there's a place for you. We want you here. We also provide transportation, which is rare in charter schools, so we're really proud. So we thank you for welcoming us. Everyone has been so hospitable, and we thank you for being our partners and supporting our rural families. So again, if you have any questions, we have our director of curriculum and instruction, and as I said, we have our new principal, Danny Higgins, whom I think some of you already know.
Thanks for coming today. I don't think it's a secret how much this board supports RCMA and the work that's being done there. Danny is a rock star and walks those communities, and I've been out there once, and for someone to do that who wasn't even employed with your organization at the time is somebody who really cares about those students. So I think that we will always respect the work done there. As far as support of that school, I think I know for myself, very much supportive of what you're doing and the growth of that. The fact when I walked in and got a tour of the nursery and saw the cribs and know that people can come there and feel safe to leave their infant children, I don't know that that's I don't know that we do that anywhere else. And then continue to follow them, and now we'll be able to grow that and follow them through school. I hear the stories from the tomato fields to Harvard and these things. It's just amazing what these students can do. And I'm here to support what you're doing, and I appreciate the work that's being done. Thank you
so much for your kind words.
Well, I was a teacher over in Hillsborough County for many years, and I think that this program that you're doing is tremendous because so many of those students don't get what they really need. And to show your love that comes, you can tell your whole staff, again, keep up the good work, and I definitely support you, and hopefully we can expand, and who knows, if I win the lottery, I'll give you some money.
Oh my gosh, I'll hold you to it. Thank you so much. Danny will hold you to it.
I want to commend you for your presentation today and the idea of going beyond the preschoolers into elementary age students. To me is amazing because they have that pattern where they're going to continue to be involved. I do have a question. What type of relationship, if any, do you have with the East Coast Migrant Head Start Project? Because they're recently moved into the Bartow community. They purchased a facility that Girls Inc. Had before them. And I know that they're doing some of the same level of work. So I think it's definitely something that's needed. And I can see that you guys are working with them.
We work closely with East Coast Migrant.
Maybe you might want to come up, please.
Good afternoon. We have been working closely with the East Coast Migrant Head Start as well, and with other agencies that work with migrant and seasonal farm workers and families within that community. We have an MOU with them also to go in and kind of share opportunities. And when we've shared opportunities, it is just that. We want the families to know that there are choices and there's other opportunities than what we have to offer. So we have spoken to the families from East Coast, and I work very closely with their leadership as well.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, at this time, the next several items before you is the Andy Baldwin Show. He will be here for the next 7 items, if I counted correctly. These are all ESSER grants. As the board has requested, any grant that exceeds $1 million, we definitely want to have more conversation about and provide more background information on. That'll also be done in your board packets as well. But Mr. Baldwin's here to get approval or to start the conversation about approval for several ESSER grant applications that we're submitting for tutoring and academic intervention for our students and families. Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Thank you, board members. The first item number 3 for you, is an ESSER 2 grant for Civics Literacy Excellence Initiative. This is $376,000 that we can utilize to purchase civics curriculum. Currently, the adoption list for civics curriculum has not been released by the state of Florida, so as soon as that is released, we'll be able to expend that money to purchase civics curriculum for our students.
Mr. Baldwin, just for clarification, and I'm asking this for my benefit as well, the instructional materials that you might procure with this, does this supplement the 6 high schools that received the civics grant?
This is in addition to that. That grant, through the partnership with Polk State College, where we received a subaward, did not include any curriculum that went along with it. And it included equipment and then training for teachers and some experiences for our teachers.
This would help with the instructional materials to supplement and support those classes then?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about item number 3?
Ms. Fields?
I just wanted clarity on the dates that's on all of these. Some of the dates are in 2021, some 2022, so if maybe you can explain that. And then on the second page of your executive summary, positions funded through this program activity, I noticed that there's no indication of what positions are funded, and maybe that's not available at this moment. If not, you can provide it later.
Yes, ma'am. This grant does not include any positions. It is only for the purchase of instructional materials, so textbooks and curriculum that's developed specifically for civics classes. The dates for each one of these grants varies depending on when the state of Florida released them and made them available to us for the funds. Any of the ones that are labeled as ESSER 2 will be ending in September 30th of 2023. All of the ESSER 3 grants end in September 30th of 2024.
So it's not necessarily our project period, but it's the period of the grant.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The most important date is the date when it ends, and we can no longer utilize those funds after that date.
Right. And then as you continue to go through the presentation, if you can reference the positions that are funded through some of these dollars, and if you don't have that information, maybe you can provide it later?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you. Going on to item number 4, This is an ESSER 3 grant, so this one ends in September of 2024, so we've got one more full calendar year for this. This is for targeted math and STEM experiential activities. This is a $1.4 million grant, which we are utilizing to provide professional learning cadres for our math and science teachers, so that some teachers can be utilized as kind of a teach the teacher or a train the trainer type model, and other teachers are participating in those. Then we're also purchasing manipulatives and resources so that during those training sessions, the teachers will be able to model the correct use of instructional materials. This grant does not include any full-time positions, and it ends in September 2024.
Dr. Allen?
Thank you, Superintendent Hyde. On this one in particular, as it notes the salaries, you've got PD. Is that, as a parenthetical on that line item, can you explain what the PD is representing? So you have salaries and benefits.
Yes, in grant language, salaries refer to any time we're paying an employee for work that they're performing. In this case, it is hourly stipends or flat rate stipends to teachers that are participating in the training. So it's not full-time staff salaries, it's kind of part-time or special activity pay.
Mm-hmm. So is this considered like bonus dollars? Does it count towards average teacher salaries? I'm just trying to understand a little bit of that.
I'm not familiar with how average teacher salaries are calculated, but I would imagine those would be just on full-time teacher salaries and not on any special activity or additional stipends. These are optional stipends that teachers can choose to participate, and so it would just be supplemental dollars they could receive.
Okay, great. And I don't really need an answer on this now, but I would just like to know what the average, bonus pay would be as it's distributed, if, maybe down the road as we look at that.
I can tell you right now what this is for this grant.
Yeah.
Those that are leading the initiative and doing the train the trainer model will receive a $1,500 flat rate stipend, and the other teachers that participate in the training receive a $600 flat rate stipend.
Okay, great to know. Thank you.
Move on, Mr. Baldwin.
Item number 5. This is another ESSER 3 grant, which ends in September of 2024. This grant is specifically to purchase instructional materials, and we will be using this to offset cost of instructional materials that we would otherwise be purchasing. So our normal curriculum adoptions, we can just use this $1.2 million to offset our normal costs. There will be no full-time salaries in this grant either.
Go ahead, Mr. Baldwin.
Item number 6 is another ESSER 3 grant, which ends in September of 2024. This is the High Impact Reading Intervention and Targeted Supports Grant. It is a $1.3 million grant that is going to be utilized to provide professional development for our teachers and also to buy some supplemental resources for literacy and reading instruction. We're going to be purchasing some curriculum related to phonics to reading and providing teachers training on how to utilize that curriculum, as well as corrective reading and providing teachers training on how to utilize the corrective reading curriculum. The salaries that are listed in the executive summary represent hourly special activity stipends that teachers will receive. This grant also does not have any full-time staff devoted to it.
Dr. Allen?
So currently, we're using the corrective reading, right? Do we beta that, or is that?
We are using corrective reading in targeted schools at this time.
Mm-hmm. So this would expand that?
I'm not sure. I don't have the answer.
Yeah. Superintendent, I don't know if you have an answer for that.
So I'd have to actually ask Mr. Green or staff to come forward and address that question. The purpose of the funding, as you see there, is to provide corrective reading and training in schools that have 50% or more of their students in voluntary pre-K through grade 3 reading below level 3 in reading. Based off that description, I'm going to assume at this time that this is an expansion to include additional schools. But again, I defer to Mr. Green or his staff. He's saying.
And that's okay. I don't need an answer. I'm just going to definitely, offer that support. I'm really excited and love seeing that be implemented across our district. So.
Item number 7 is another ESSER 3 grant, which ends in September of 2024. This one is focused on intensive after-school and weekend activities for students. So for this grant, we will be providing hourly stipends to staff in schools that wish to pursue after-school or weekend grant tutoring for their students. I should note that this is in addition to many other tutoring programs that we have through other ESSER projects as well. This is a supplemental grant, and we may be looking at ways to change the focus of this grant to more focus on some ideas that Mr. Hyde has for expanding the access to other people in the community.
Dr. Allen, I'm going to go ahead and respond to your previous question. It is an expansion to 40 additional schools beyond what we're currently targeting for corrective reading.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Mr. Baldwin, I see no questions. You may move on.
Item number 8 is an ESSER 2 grant. So this one ends in September of 23. This grant is very specific in the targeted students that can be that the funds can be used for. This is for reading tutoring K through 3. We can only use these funds to target tutoring for our lowest performing K through 3 students. And in our original plan, we have planned to contract the tutoring through a third party to purchase phonics manipulatives and to purchase leveled text for those manipulatives. Because we have received so many additional funds for basically this exact same focus, and due to the very strict limitations on this grant, we're probably going to try to refocus this grant to provide the kindergarten summer kinder camp this summer with these funds.
So for the last 2 years, we have brought back a kindergarten readiness boot camp. Dr. Ben Henry ran it last year. This year's enrollment and interest has more than doubled. I'll provide that data to the board in a Friday update. Hang on, Mr. Sharpless.
In addition to just enrollment data for the summer camp, have we seen any increase in our average on kindergarten readiness scores?
Kindergarten readiness is no longer assessed during kindergarten. It's actually assessed during the pre-K years. They made that change last school year.
Okay.
So we would not have an indication of improvement. I could see if we have collected data, and really I think we were looking to target those students for third grade to determine whether or not their participation in the kindergarten readiness boot camp had any demonstrable impact. It's hard to have a measure of that. Students are only there for a week, but we could look to see if there are some measures that we could calculate. And I'm reluctant because everything I can think of that we would evaluate, truancy, regular attendance, academic interest, there's already an initiative on behalf of the family to have their child participate, so they're getting good supports at home.
Makes sense.
So I'd have to spend some time with our data analytics team to determine if there's something we could use as a measure. We are finding, however, for our teachers, they're able to start identifying student behavioral needs and or other needs during this time. So we might be able to capture that data to share with the board, and we could definitely collect some data on where we believe the starting point is for those students when it comes to literacy and numeracy. But I want to be a little cautious because I don't want to over-assess during that time frame. This is more about bringing families in and getting them acclimated and comfortable with kindergarten, the structure of the day, but it does provide us some preemptive strategies to evaluate students to determine whether or not they're going to require additional supports and services upon entry to school.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. You may move on, Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you. Item number 9 is an ESSER 3 grant. It is the ESSER 3 Summer Learning Camps grant. This grant requires, if we were to utilize these funds for a summer program, we would have to run a 5-week summer program targeting specific students. So this is another grant where we may try to amend our original plan and include some additional community partnership opportunities to utilize these funds over the next year and a half.
I see no questions, Mr. Baldwin.
Item number 10 is an ESSER 2 grant. This is the ESSER 2 Supplemental Programming Grant. If you may recall, whenever the ESSER 2 grant was originally awarded, our lump sum that came from the federal government was split into 4 parts in the state of Florida. One was a lump sum, which represented a little over $80 million. Another was called the technology assistance portion. That's a little over $6 million. And then there were 2 other grants, academic instruction and non-enrollment assistance. The state of Florida chose to end those 2 grants, those last 2, the academic assistance and the non-enrollment, early, and instead to wrap the remaining dollars into the supplemental programming grant. So those other 2 grants have already closed, and the remaining amount of just over almost $14 million is wrapped into supplemental programming grant. Our plans for this money is to utilize a large portion of this for the summer programs for this summer of 2023. We are currently providing an extra planning hour at our school improvement schools. We are running a program called Response to Data, which I believe the superintendent has helped you understand, and we're funding this year's Varsity Tutors program, which is the online tutoring program out of this grant. This grant currently does not have any full-time staff in the grant.
Dr. Allen?
Yeah, great. I'm glad you brought that up about the varsity because I think that came into a question in the next 1 or 2 items. Does that fall underneath the tech-related, or what category would that fall under as far as how we're funding that from this grant? Do you know?
It's under the technology portion on the executive summary, the tech-related rentals, because it's considered a rental in the grant world because we're kind of borrowing the software for a year.
Yeah, indeed. Great. Superintendent Hyde, I did see your name on the agenda, by the way, for the FSBA as it relates to that piece of software.
Yes, sir.
All right. Excited to hear you speak about it. Yeah, appreciate that.
I'll give you an example, too, going back to one item about kindergarten camps. So thus far, Dr. Henry's update that he provided Mr. Green and I think several days ago, we already have 810 students registered, 67 classrooms, 134 teachers. And so we still have to get the numbers for the second camp that's getting ready to come up for the summer. So right now, we're making great progress with getting our kindergartners onto our campuses. Part of what they'll also participate in during this time is they'll have, Mr. Davis and others will have buses there. So if the student's a bus rider and they've never been on a bus, they'll get to ride the bus with their parent. It'll be a brief trip around the block, but it talks to them about safety, staying in your seat, the importance of not moving when the bus is in operation. I mean, the simple things like that ordinarily the driver would have to do on the first day with other students riding at the same time. So there's a comfort level for some of our families about how to utilize this.
Yeah. Indeed.
Go ahead, Mr. Bowen.
Thank you. Going on to item number 11. Item number 11 is the ESSER 3 Supplemental Programming Grant. So this has the same type of programs that could be included in the ESSER 2 Supplemental Programming, but just for an additional year under ESSER 3. We are planning under the ESSER 3 Supplemental Programming Grant to cover the costs for the next summer 2024. And then for next year's DA school or the school improvement extra planning hour, and then response to data for another year for our school improvement schools and those schools that need that support. Varsity tutors would not be covered out of this grant for the next year because the cost would exceed the allocation for this grant because it's less than half of the ESSER 2 supplemental programming. But if the board wishes to participate or to continue varsity tutors for the next year, I do have that tentatively budgeted in our ESSER 3 learning loss grant.
Correct. Board members, you may recall you initially approved additional planning time for our teachers. It's a 3 and 2. They get paid for 5 days of planning each week, depending on the number of days they actually have in a week. 2 of those days are required to remain after school and collaborate either with their grade level or cross grade level teams. They focus primarily on their current data. It's been well received. And the other 3 days, they get paid for independent planning, which we know they do at home, or they can do it during other times. The last year and a half or 2 years, Ms. Yoakum and I have spent time visiting every single school that participates in the current MOU to gather feedback from staff so that each year we can see continuous improvements in how they're accessing the planning time. Now that we have more secondary schools participating, what we have found, and changes for next year, will include those singleton teachers. So for example, if I'm the only AP Calculus teacher on my campus, who do I plan with? Well, we will now have a remote option for them. Rather than having to travel across the school district, they'll be able to plan with other AP geometry teachers at other schools who are under the same MOU. The goal of this is to capture data for the 3-year period of time that we funded the project for, and then do a comparative analysis to determine if there's any effect size and student outcomes. Based off that, I will come back to the board more than likely and ask for an extension of this, and it would be something we would then have to fund from our general operating budget or from some other Title I or other resources. However, we know that we could not afford 5 days a week. So staff have been told each one of the schools is trying something slightly different so that we can really get some good feedback as to what best works for them. For example, next year there'll be more flexibility. So while they've had to plan after school, they can now pull that planning time in during the school day. And that has been more beneficial for our supplemental instructional staff, such as our psychs, our social workers, our reading coaches, and our math coaches, because for them to stay after school, depending on which grade levels are there, it makes for a much longer week for them outside of their traditional work hours. So paraeducators are included in this as well, so they can co-plan with their teachers. And so each year we've made slight tweaks and improvements to this. And again, the board would not see a proposal that recommends, I mean, I could recommend 5 days a week. We could not afford 5 extra hours a week for planning time. Part of the reason we can't pull the planning time out of the current instructional day is, as you know, the instructional minutes, our students have to have a certain number of seat time hours in order to receive a full credit for a course to be completed. If there weren't that seat time requirement, then we would not be under that, we would have more flexibility with our academic day. So planning time has to occur either before school or after school or during the day during their traditional independent or personal planning times. Now they're agreeing to collaborate more freely and more regularly. So we've seen some steady improvements, but again, each year we go out throughout the year and survey staff, visit with them, get great feedback, we have great conversations, and so I look forward to bringing the board with some data at the end of this school year, the 3rd and final year of implementing this program.
The last item I have before you today is item number 12, which is a quarterly grant report, which is when we provide an update of all the grants that we have applied for through our office and all the competitive grants which our office has supported, and to give you a summary of both the grants and then all of the amendments that we have made to grants within that period as well. Typically, we only present grants to the board when it exceeds $250,000, but there are often a lot of smaller grants that we apply for throughout the year, maybe $10,000, $15,000 grants. And we want to make sure that you are all aware of those grants throughout the year.
I see no questions, Mr. Baldwin. Board members, I know there's a lot of grants here to capture. I think Mr. Baldwin did an exceptional job identifying if there were staffing. And thank you, Ms. Fields, for asking to clarify that question for each one of the grants. There are stipends that are in here. I will work with Mr. Baldwin. We'll give you another brief summary of each grant and the stipend amounts, if there are stipend amounts within each one of these grant areas. But it's important for you to understand and be able to distinguish between all of these opportunities that we're affording our staff and our students and families. So I will tell you, and I've said this publicly, and he deserves a lot of credit, Mr. Baldwin is managing an incredibly large grant under the various ESSER grants, and he and his team have truly done an amazing job, and he's very flexible. He's worked with us. As you know, there are deadlines in which we have to expend funds. If he identifies that we're going to hit a barrier, and unfortunately some of these are facilities needs, and if we don't spend the dollars, unless the state or the feds come out with some additional flexibility and say, so long as you've encumbered the funds, we'll go ahead and we'll count that. But right now, that's not necessarily the case in all areas. So Mr. Ball was very quick to identify, along with Ms. Jenkins and the team and Mr. Pitts, to say, hey, listen, we're going to have excess dollars because we really can't wait to delay to purchase these items. So then those dollars come right back, and then we reallocate and repurpose in real time. So he deserves a lot of credit because that's an incredibly large grant that he's managing with his team. So, and he does a great job of doing it. So thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Next item up before the board is item for Ms. Pasco. This is a Summit Broadband Third Amendment. It's called an amendment. It's truly not. It's an amendment because we have an existing contract. This covers the addition of 3 new locations in the school district. And so I think I just stole all your thunder, Ms. Pasco. I'm sorry. There's not much more to it than that.
No mic drop today?
Mic drop today.
You are correct. So the board might remember, and Polk County might remember, that prior to my tenure, we wanted to maximize grant dollars to upgrade our Wi-Fi capabilities. And typically when we do that, we look for fiber, and so we upgraded that to 100 gig fiber. We utilized 2 different vendors, Summit and WANRAC, and based upon the location of these schools, it's also in our best interest to standardize how many vendors we use so that we're not having to hire extra people to work with extra vendors. So we've gone back with Summit and working with them to try to provide that fiber to those 3 buildings.
And so you'll notice, board members, if you looked at the Third Amendment Master IRU agreement, it identifies those. The first site is the CFA expansion at Winter Haven Airport. The second site is extension of School 21C with the Lake Wales Bus Garage. And then the third one is the Haines City High School expansion that you saw and approved with the addition of those new portables to cover student enrollment and growth for the next 2 years while we wait for a new high school to be constructed. Any questions? I see Dr. Allen.
Thank you, Ms. Pasco. So I was just curious, has Summit already completed all the previous installation under the contract? And that was the 2021 contract, correct?
Yes, sir, it was.
Yep.
They have not completed all. I don't have the paperwork right in front of me, but they have completed a significant portion. And we are working with them. I meet with Summit twice a week. We did run into some challenges working through different agencies. I'm not sure if the challenge with fiber is you have to get agreements from all the different municipalities because you're digging underground. And then you also have to get right-of-way easements to make sure you're not impacting someone else. There were changes in other municipalities in their leadership, so we need to go back to the table and have more conversations. We've been doing that. And we do have an agreement on the table that this will all be taken care of and will be up by August for all of the remaining schools.
Wow, okay.
Yes, sir.
So then that follow-up question, as we get our lines down, right? The next question is all the hardware that's going to go to then process all that data. So how are we looking on that?
Already have the hardware.
No way. Okay,
We do.
very good.
So I don't want to go into too much detail because we'll get into some cybersecurity things,
Yep.
which I'd prefer not to share, and I believe the state actually requests that I not, but we are good for that. There will not be an additional request for money to support the fiber that's coming into the buildings.
Okay. Last question. I did see in the contract, it was approximately $148, something like that, as far as the monthly maintenance. That's in addition to the previously agreed upon $3,400, something like that. It was like a monthly maintenance fee.
Correct. So this fiber is unique because it's called dark fiber. Now, that's not an ominous term. What that means is it's unlit. And unlit means nobody else is using it. So if you think about fiber and you think about a highway, we have different paths on that highway. And oftentimes someone will say, you get lane 1, but then they'll put another car in there with you. That's not what happens here. In dark fiber, it's just ours. Nobody else can touch it and nobody can do it. And we have an indefeasible right for 30 years. So that what we've done is front load that payment now. That's the only payment we'll make, and we just give them a maintenance fee. And the maintenance fee, actually, Mr. Hyde, you may be looking at it, it's around $49 per site. So that $140, $149 is all 3 together, and that's all what the Polk County will pay for the next 30 years.
Very good. And what was the download speed that you mentioned?
100 gig.
100 gig. Wow, that's incredible.
Well, we got to support varsity tutor, so we got to we got to make sure that all this works and that I'm not getting calls of it's not fast enough.
I can't wait to run a speed test.
There's a story that goes behind this. There was a high school that built a brand-new high school stadium, football stadium. And they did so, and they spent several $1 million doing it. And it was beautiful, except it backed up to a neighborhood, and they never discussed the construction with the neighborhood. The neighborhood sued, and the high school had to demolish this new stadium. And so there have been opportunities where Ms. Pasco and I have spoken where I've said, just don't give me Schaumburg bleachers. And as a result, so that's why she spends so much time and effort and does her due diligence, because we don't want a project to get so far and then ultimately fail because somehow we miscommunicated or failed to communicate or convey our intentions. And so she's very detailed oriented with the rest of the team, and they've done a really good job. I tell you, our IT team has really come together too. They're doing exceptionally well. We've just seen a large number of internal promotions as a result of their growth and recommitment, and that's really a testament to Ms. Pasco and the team she's starting to put together. So kudos to you.
They're a great team. Polk County is a great place to work. I think I said that last time. I meant it with sincerity. It's a great place.
Indeed. Thank you. I mean,
No further
as a board member, I would just say if you get a chance to, connect with Summit during their installation process, it is pretty fascinating. So thank you, Ms. Pasco.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Pasco. Final item on the superintendent's report for this morning or this afternoon is the elective course for English language learners. At this time, I'd like to bring our Senior Director for ESOL, Ms. Patricia Trejo, to the microphone.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I am Dr. Patricia Trejo. Thank you for the opportunity to be here before you. And you're right, Mrs. Pasco, this is a great place to work, and it's more so when you've been gone for 21 years and you finally get to come home. This is where I grew up as a little ESOL girl, a migrant student myself. So if somebody would have said to me, one day you're going to be leading that ESOL department that's helping and supporting you, I would have never believed it. So it's a full circle. I'm delighted to be here to lead the department and serve this great district that positively impacted me. And so, as you know, with our growing population right now, we are leading with a Hispanic Latino descent of 42%. 42%. Our active English language learners right now, we're sitting at 12,300. Of those, our students of Hispanic Latino descent comprise of 10,400. We have about 107 different languages that are spoken here in Polk County Public Schools, with Spanish being the second most spoken language. And as we go back and review our non-ELL versus our ELL graduation rates, we see that in 2021, 2022, we see English language learners graduating at 61.5% as opposed to the 80% of students that are non-English language learners. So there's definitely some opportunities there, and in order to do that, I would like to introduce to you this amazing elective course that will help to support our English language learners. It is called Latinos in Action. Latinos in Action was actually created by the CEO founder of Dr. Jose Enriquez back in 2001 at Utah. And I'm going to see if I can go ahead and slide. There we go. There are actually right now 291 different schools that have Latinos in Action across the nation. In fact, it's pretty remarkable to see over 8,000 Latino in Action students across 13 different states, including Florida. Here in Florida specifically, there are Latino in Action courses in Palm Beach, Broward, Hillsborough. It's growing and growing, and we're hoping that it'll grow here in Polk County as well. The opportunity that we have to really empower our English language learners is right here in front of us with this elective opportunity. The students have not only the opportunity to embrace their cultural assets, it's important that we embrace them and give them that opportunity to feel affirmed and validated, and to allow them to speak their native language so that they preserve not only their native language, but also have those great opportunities to feel confident in themselves, and also give them a space where they feel welcome and empowered. I had the great opportunity to go out and visit some of our communities, knocking on doors, partnering up with our migrant education department along with our community outreach and social services. And I can share with you that some of the feedback from our families
families, specifically our students that are coming from Guatemala, for example, were expressing that they didn't feel comfortable enough coming to school, that they didn't want to come to school because they felt that they weren't safe, unfortunately, because some felt that they were being bullied because they couldn't speak English, that didn't find themselves really reflective in what they were learning and or the people that were standing before them. And so it's important that we create these learning spaces where we do have them feel that they're welcome and that they want to feel that they want to come to school. And it's also important to note that a lot of our students don't necessarily speak Spanish, they actually speak Mum. So it was quite interesting to do my own struggles there to try to communicate with them. But it was very, it was an interesting experience to hear from them firsthand as to why they didn't want to come to school. Again, this particular opportunity will really encourage them. The model of the makeup of the Latinos in Action course is a 30-40-30 model. And what that is potentially that we want to make sure that we are having those individuals that perhaps are English language learners, that untapped potential, that we can go ahead and basically have a class comprised of students that are leaders in their own right, that they are a little bit more comfortable in their language, as well as our high achievers, our students that are advanced. So we want to balance it out, not necessarily load it heavy with just English language learners. Again, we want our students to feel that empowerment. We want them to be exposed and enrich and learn from others as well. So we do want that strategic way of balancing the classes. There are three pillars, actually 4 pillars of Latinos in Action. Again, it is important that we're looking at through an asset-based lens. We want to really embrace their talents and elevate them. We want to make them feel empowered. We definitely want them to have a focus in education, particularly helping them to be college and career ready. And by doing that, through helping them, through getting those opportunities through service as well as leadership. When you think about that word action in the sense of we're no longer doing a teacher direct type of elective course. We're now doing a student-led, a project-based. We're having students now take that initiative and that action within their own education, helping them to embrace their knowledge and their skills, embrace their language. And through action, they can do that through servicing their communities, leading and strengthening their communities, as well as helping themselves to prepare for college and career ready through that service as well. Within the course, there's actually opportunities for the students to all have a role. In fact, there are different committees within the classroom where the students will participate, whether it's a professional learning committee, a service committee, or a social activities committee. All the students will play a role. I can share with you that as growing up and graduating from Arbonell High School, where I served as the first Latina student government president, because I was elected among my peers, that unique experience that I had was absolutely amazing. But it would have been just absolutely incredible had I had the opportunity to be in a classroom of this nature where I saw kids that looked like me, because at the time there were a very limited number of kids that did look like me, and it was a challenge. So I can only relate to some of the students that have expressed their testimonials as it relates to really trying to find their place and making sure that they have these spaces where they can also feel empowered and lead, and also lead and empower others. Within the leadership committees, you have the opportunity for students to plan and execute meaningful service activities outside of actually tutoring students as well, planning different social opportunities for teachers and parents in the community, as well as working towards having the opportunity to have even experiences with colleges and universities where they can partner up and help support them. Within the elective course, as I already mentioned, not only are we embracing the student as holistically as themselves, but we're also ensuring that they also embrace others. By doing that, there is a partnership that the schools would have with the elementary feeder schools, where they will have an opportunity within the elective course to actually go back and tutor the little ones so that they feel empowered again. They have that opportunity to not only inspire them, but also mentor and support them as well. Here's a quick little video I'd like to show you.
Every child needs a hero. At Latinos in Action, we create heroes daily, Each week, over 5,000 middle and high school students go into elementary schools as part of our tutoring program. Participating in the tutoring program, our students learn the value of community service while boosting their self-confidence and learning skills that improve their academic performance. More importantly, they become role models for the young people they serve. Latinos in Action is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a mission to empower Latino youth to lead and strengthen their communities through college and career readiness. Every child
I love that. To lead and strengthen their communities through college and career readiness. These individuals will not only have that opportunity to do that, but within the elective course, they also have the opportunity to get micro-credentialed. The Latino in Action courses across the nation have partnered up with different health centers where they have been able to screen their own families, whether it's for prediabetes or high blood pressure. In addition to that, within the class, there's an opportunity for the students to come together, what you would call the masterminds. So they come together and actually plan with other students at the different high schools that have the elective courses so that they can come together regarding SMART goals and establish, different opportunities that they can serve their communities with planning, preparing, and organizing. In addition to that, the college also has the opportunity for some of the Latinos in Action courses, specifically in Utah as an example, they have the opportunity for dual enrollment, which I think is pretty important, right, and fascinating to be able to do that. So know that there's certainly many, many opportunities here for our students. The standards alignment does align to the WIDA standards, which is pretty important, as we all know, as well as the English language arts standards. There's so many different opportunities for the students, not only to learn about their biculturalism, but also about building relationships, the financial responsibility, the time management, as well as self-discipline and self-reliance. If we are able to provide a welcoming, inclusive space where our students feel that they can have these opportunities, I guarantee you they're going to want to come to school. And here you'll have an opportunity also for our educators that are going to support our students within this classroom. There is a depository for the teachers where they can go in and dive in and take a look at the different curriculum materials that are already going to be readily available for them, along with the scope and sequences, as well as different assessments that are available and activities and guided practices that the teachers can lean on so they don't feel that they're all alone and there's not anyone out there that's really trying to create different things every single week. It's all there readily for them as well. There's also assessments, as well as giving the opportunities for the students themselves to not only assess themselves, but also to ensure that they are providing feedback through surveys, as well as the teachers to provide that, not only the qualitative feedback, but also in making sure that they're providing those testimonials on how their experiences are going throughout the course. There is this great, incredible opportunity for the students as well. They get to go back and actually get that feel of what it would be like if they were actually in a college setting. And so Latinos in Action actually host a Latinos in Action conference every single year. In fact, they already hosted one at Florida Atlantic University, at University Central Florida. There's one coming up at the University South Florida that I would love for all of you to come and see and experience for yourself. It is absolutely amazing. You will see the students beam with light, and you just have to see it, but I'm going to show you a quick little video, and then we'll go from there.
Michael Pena is set to play astronaut Jose Hernandez.
And let me pause it here for a second. When the students have the opportunity that's coming up on May 15th at the University of South Florida in Tampa, they're actually going to have the opportunity to hear from the keynote speaker, the former NASA astronaut Jose Hernandez. So this is a quick little highlight of him.
New film for Amazon Studios. The actor will star in the drama titled A Million Miles Away. The feature project is based on the autobiography Reaching for the Stars. Hernandez is described as the first migrant farm worker to travel into space. The man who didn't learn English until the age of 12 spent his childhood moving from town to town and working fields with his family. Not giving up his dream of traveling the night sky in a rocket, he took the science route to space. He also persevered through 11 rejections to become a crew member of a space shuttle mission. Michael Pena.
We have so many students here at Weber State, and we're so excited to host this many students. we are really here to kind of help students find a pathway to college. A lot of students are trying to figure out earlier and earlier if they actually want to attend college, and this is a great way to expose students to campuses all over the country to really feel like if they would like to be a part of the campus community. So here at Weber State University, again, we are excited to have students be here. Having them here actually on campus allows them to see that there is a place for them here. There's so many barriers and there's so many challenges that we all face, but if you really know what your dreams are and your purpose is in life, you can accomplish whatever you would like.
And you're gonna see that I'm no different than you guys. I'm not an Einstein, I'm not smart. Pero ¿sabes qué? Me gusta chambear. I work hard. Believing in yourselves. I want you to believe I can do anything. Para convertir esos sueños en realidad. Convert those dreams into reality.
My parents are janitors. Dead silence and horrified looks from everyone in the room. But they stand out against the sea of lawyers and doctors and agents. They stand for more than those soulless people. My parents always taught me to stand for more. And with all my might, I will stand for more and live the life my parents sacrificed everything for.
Our students can and will stand for more. It is also really important for me to highlight that within the elective course, it lends itself really nicely to the Florida State Statute 1003.42P, which talks about the importance of all of our students to learn about Hispanic contributions made to the United States. And so former NASA astronaut Jose Hernandez, what better way for the students to get the opportunity to hear from him live of an amazing, iconic individual that made an incredible impact, right? And so it would be great to also highlight, as we know, the STEM and the STEM areas, STEAM areas for our students as well. So I look forward to taking about a good 54 students upcoming May 15th. So again, mark your calendars. I hope to see you there. In addition to that, the Latinos in Action also has a leadership boot camp as well, where the students get to learn and get that professional development themselves to grow as leaders and how to better support themselves as well as their little peers that they help as they tutor. The teachers will also have the opportunity to participate in an Educator Institute that happens every year in the summer. And in addition to that, they will continuously have communication with regards to newsletters that come out to them. And if you take a look at this progression, it basically just demonstrates and shows the amount of students that have participated in Latinos in Action within its inception and how it's grown and how the students have really blossomed into participating in concurrent enrollment opportunities, extracurricular and honors and AP classes. And so I really believe that this is going to be a really great opportunity for our students to really get
college and career prepared. Some testimonials. Broward right now is leading with 49 of their schools. It is also important to note that Palm Beach is also right there behind. They're growing as well with 13 of their schools. I think it's also important to provide a personal testimonial, if I may, that in my previous district where I served, I played an instrumental role in helping to grow Latinos in Action within the district. I played a very it was an important role that I played because not only did I have the opportunity to go to the Latinos in Action conferences, but I also presented. So I saw it firsthand and how impactful it was with the students, as well as being there right there in the trenches with the teachers, participating in the summer institutes that the educators had the opportunity to participate along with the leadership boot camps. So this is just a quick highlight of some of the different experiences that I personally had with the students, not only in Palm Beach County, but also in Broward and other areas within here in Florida. The students also have an opportunity to get creative with the visual arts. They're talented, right? So we want to make sure to maximize those opportunities. This is just an example here of where an amazing student who happened to be very shy, reserved, couldn't really find her place, in fact, would go home and say, "Mommy, where are those libros? Where are those books? I don't see myself in them anymore." A student who had been in dual language and then transitioned, followed her parents' career, and didn't have the opportunity to go back to be a part of a dual language program, now was sitting at a school that couldn't really find herself. And so she would come home and ask those big burning questions: where are the books? Where's the language? Where's the people? And so, you know, when this child finally transitioned to this middle school that had a Latinos in Action elective course, all it took as a sixth grader for a teacher to say, "All right, kids, everybody bring out your pencils, your colored pencils, your crayons, whatever you may have. I want you to design that amazing logo design that you want to capture the Latinos in Action class. And whoever ends up drawing the best one, we're going to vote on it. And if so, your design is going to be permanently painted outside of the middle school." And guess what? That little girl's design was picked. Her peers voted, the teachers selected it, and this is the mural that began. This mural was created by my daughter. My daughter, who now is here as a Polk County Public School student, who in all honesty, when we transitioned, cried in tears and said to my little one, who was 9, and said, "You don't understand why I'm crying. I'm crying because I finally saw people that look like me." Now, no, because I have to make sure to make it very clear, my daughter will not have the opportunity to take advantage of this opportunity because she's in middle school. We're offering it to our high schools coming up to the next year. We're offering it to 8, and we're hoping that you will approve it and allow the opportunity for our kids, because this is such a great opportunity for our kids to really be prepared, not only to be college and career ready, but to also to be amazing leaders of their communities. The launching process, once approved, we will meet with the administrators, the teachers, the counselors. We'll make sure to partner up with the elementary schools as well and ensure that there are all the pieces in place in order for the students to be ready to have an incredible experience in the upcoming year. Thank you for the opportunity to be before you. I appreciate it.
Dr. Allen?
Okay.
No?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know if I left the list open from previously. I apologize.
That's all right. Thank you. Man, I really appreciate you bringing this forward to the board, and nice to meet you as well. Great to hear from you. Your story is moving, so the way that you wove your story and your experiences into this just shows your due diligence, your passion, and then the outcome of that. So really appreciate that very much. So looking at the materials, I mean, you know, the opportunity to build character in our students really stuck out to me in the materials. You know, obviously the student leadership portion, the college and career readiness element, definitely I resonated with a lot of that. And then the student accountability portion in the contract really sets high expectations for the students to be involved. I mean, there's so many good things and great things for our students to engage. So really appreciate that. I want to go back. You know, I'll go back and watch this because you gave so many stats at the beginning of your presentation I was really drawn to as well. You mentioned 42%, because we were 37%, right? So yeah, thanks for pulling that data and sharing that with us as well. It's really important for us to understand, in a sense, where we're at as a district. So really appreciate that as well. So I'm definitely in support of this. So thank you for the great work that you've done on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Sharpless?
I was just looking at the memorandum of understanding, and I saw the 8 schools that were selected. I was just curious. I've got a couple questions. First one, how are those 8 schools selected?
That's a really great question. So I was able to collaborate with Mrs. Collins, the high school regional superintendent, along with Ann Everett for acceleration and innovation. And so they thought it would be best to hone in on these particular schools. There is an interest in the feeder schools coming up until if approved, thereafter. But it was a conversation around the number of students that are identified as active English language learners in the pockets, and also trying to be a little bit fair with spreading it out and not necessarily just having it in a particular area.
One question I have is I see Lake Wales High School's on there, and they're in Lake Wales charter school system, and there are costs associated with this. So I was just curious, are those costs being shared with Lake Wales charter schools? Are we absorbing all those costs? Have we had conversation with their board on this and Lake Wales High School in particular?
Yes, so because we get their Title III funding, we must make sure that we are offering them support as well. And so, yes, I've had the opportunity to meet with the superintendent along with the CEO founder, Dr. Jose Enriquez. We met with him. So Lake Wales Charter High School actually already participated in the Latinos in Action conference that was held over here at University of Central Florida. Apparently they had a really great time. And so, yes, we have to make sure that we support them as well because of the Title III funding that we do receive from them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Fields?
When I read the overview, it was exciting to understand the value of making sure that our students understand their culture and they can relate. And when you referenced about, I believe you said your daughter said that she saw someone who looked like her, and I think that is just critical, especially now in these days. And the cost is very minimum, very, compared to what the students will hopefully be able to accomplish through this course. So thank you for this. And I'm sure that the students and the families will thank you long-term as well. So Superintendent Hyde, my question to you is there an elective course similar to this for Black students? Is there any conversation about having something similar to this for Black students?
Yes, ma'am. And so please recall that we have done several things to provide opportunities to all of our minority students here in Polk County Public Schools. As far as there being an additional club, we would have to research that further in order to bring something back to Polk County Public Schools. I'd also have to evaluate what clubs have been launched here, both successfully and unsuccessfully in the past. But you will recall that we have the new scholarship program for our students who would be non-traditional college attendees. We've put several things in place to benefit all of our students, our minority students. But I would have to look further.
I understand that, but what I'm referencing, and I think you've answered, there's not an elective course as such.
Well, no, ma'am. There are elective courses for African American history and African American literature as required by the state. And the Polk County Public Schools implemented that several years ago. As far as a program like this, I'm not aware of one that's fully launched across the school district. It doesn't mean we don't have pockets of programs, and so I'd want to take the time to evaluate whether or not they exist, which ones we've launched, and then they failed, determine why they failed, before we reinvest in programs to ensure that we relaunch with a high level of fidelity and participation.
I think it would be nice to have that information so we can look at it and see exactly what needs to happen next.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
No further questions, Ms. Trejo. Great job. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes the superintendent's report for today and workshop. There's 2 remaining items under donation report and quarterly report for superintendent approvals. Madam Chair, I will defer the rest to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Hyde. Next, we have on to review the agenda for this evening. And we will start with section A. We'll have pledge, call to order, acceptance of the agenda. Section B, special recognitions. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Section D, approval of the minutes. Ms. Fields, was this from before? Or did you? I think it was before. You didn't press your button. Okay. Consent agenda, sections F through J. F through J. Ms. Miller?
On the bid recommendations, I just am curious what it means if we have a bid that no award was given for no responsive bids. Do we just go back? And this is for a commodity of processing foods, but is that I've never seen that before. You can send this in an email. I'm just curious what we do and if we're lacking.
I can answer it. It's rebid.
So they just go out, it goes out again?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Miller?
No, I'm sorry. I'm done.
Any other questions on I through J? All right. K through N. K through N. O through P. Ms. Fields?
So, item P3, the lead plan. Thank you, Superintendent Hyde, for having them to go back and indicate the changes, and there were many changes. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure that was understood is on page 45 of the document, it talks about the appointment of positions and what positions the superintendent can appoint and what positions he or she cannot. And I think that this is something that really needs to be understood because I'm often asked by staff and community people, what positions can the superintendent directly appoint? And as you can see on page 45, it says what those positions are. And so I have 45. I don't know, maybe my printer. This is the one that talks about the appointment of acting district level administrative personnel. And then it says exemptions from screening procedures. And then it lists the positions that the superintendent can direct appoint. And it says deputy superintendent, associate superintendents, regional assistant superintendents, and then adding the chief of staff and the chief academic officer. That's the area Superintendent Hyde I'm talking about. So what I'm basically saying is that I think that there is some confusion on what positions require interviews and which ones do not. And I just want to make sure that I understand, but I think the community needs to understand that these are the positions that you can directly appoint, and you do not have to interview for those positions. And correct me, Superintendent Hyde, if I am incorrect. If I am incorrect, that the positions that the superintendent, whoever might be in that position currently is you, would be able to directly appoint the position of deputy superintendent, the associate superintendents, the regional assistant superintendents, and now adding the chief of staff and the chief academic officer.
Correct.
Okay.
In the process, but there's also other exemptions as well to allow for an abbreviated process. So This is, other than the addition of 2 new positions, there's no change. So as far as the community having knowledge of which positions I can directly appoint, it's a matter of record. It's not a matter, this is not new policy, so I'm not really following.
I'm understanding that, but what I'm saying to you in general is that there is some confusion, and I don't know where the confusion rests on what positions the superintendent of schools can directly appoint. And so because we're looking at this document today, and we're going to approve it today, I'm just making a general statement so that they can understand you do have the right to directly appoint the positions that's here. And now,
In fact, this is a very limiting list, respectfully. Typically, superintendents can do a direct appointment of any position, director level and above. Polk County Public Schools chooses to restrict it further and allows me to appoint under an acting title several other positions, if I recall correctly. But that's still a direct appointment. And so I don't want to conflate the two, but that there are still other exemptions. That's why I don't want to walk away and have everybody say, these are the only positions I can direct appoint, because that's not, if my recollection, based on my conversations with Mr. Bridges and my review of this document, is that I can assign others in the role of acting
right,
or interim.
and that's before that.
Correct.
The appointment of acting district level administrative personnel, it does say that.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
you're correct. And then there is an abbreviated version, and there's a lot of steps that would have to be followed for that.
Yes, ma'am. And I think since we're talking, if the concern is for matter of public record, for direct appointments, all of my direct appointments would fall within these areas.
A direct what now?
All of my direct appointments to date would fall within these respective areas and titles. Our deputy superintendent, our chief of staff, chief academic officer, chief financial officer, would all be within those areas.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that. Can you tell me who is in the position of the Director of Leadership that's referenced throughout the document?
I cannot. I do not know what position that is. Mr. Pitts, are you aware of what position that is?
John Hill.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, who?
Mr. Hill?
Okay, all right. And then the Gulf Coast Partnership, can you talk a little bit about that? Or somebody can talk a little bit about that?
Which page is that on?
It's throughout the document. I'm not.
I need a reference point. If you could point me to an initial place where you see it listed.
So it's page 14.
Thank you.
The second paragraph. And then continues on to
It's throughout the
15.
document.
6, yeah.
I'd have to ask Mr. Hill to come and speak to that respectfully. I'm not comfortable speaking to that.
Thank you.
And that's within his area, and the leadership development pipeline was established prior to his involvement. However, I think Mr. Hill is probably the best person to speak to that, so more than happy to have him present this evening.
Okay, and another question that I have that Mr. Hill could probably address is the screening process is being removed from what I'm seeing on page 12, and I was wanting to know why. And then on page 13, it talks about the veterans, and I would imagine that's in alignment with the state change in allowing veterans to be able to be teachers. Page is on, well, we might not be page 13 now because my pages don't seem to be aligned with what's here. But there is a section about veterans being able to be appointed on 3 years certification for teachers.
So on page 15, it speaks to how to become a building principal, not an instructional position. So there's a pathway, there's a modified pathway in existing statute that allows for veterans to become school-based principals.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. That's something that's added because of state law.
Yes, that is a statutory option. Yes, ma'am.
Right. So if I could have an answer on the Gulf Coast Partnership and on why is the screening process being removed before the board meeting, I would appreciate that.
Why the screening process has been removed?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I think those are all of my questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, any other questions on O through P? All right, seeing none. Any questions on section Q, action agenda? Mr. Nolte, will you be reading a letter for George Jenkins High School, Jerry May, naming the field? You'll be, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions on Q? All right, superintendent's reports. Mr. Bridges, will you have a report this evening? And Ms. Matthews, will you have a report this evening? Right, and then we will have board members' reports and public comment. All right. Going back to the agenda. All right, and do we have any updates from committees, liaison positions? Dr. Allen.
May 30th, you need to mark your calendar. I think it would be very supportive of junior achievement for us to all dress up as a board as superheroes and take part in the JA Superhero Bowl-a-thon and compete against Superintendent Hyde's team would be a great thing for us to do. But
Who's on Superintendent Hyde's team?
I know.
I feel like I heard previously that there were some previous competitive bowlers that he recruited at one point.
Yeah, he stacked his team for sure. So yeah, just mark your calendar, May 30th. 5:30 to 8 p.m. is the JA Superhero Bowl-a-thon, and that's at Cypress Lanes in Winter Haven. That's all I have.
Are you coordinating putting together a team?
I will work on that.
All right. Dr. Allen is our captain.
Lori, are you a good bowler?
All right, there you go.
As long as there's somebody in the family that represents, right?
Indeed. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Any other updates from committees? Superintendent Hyde, could you give us a brief update on your community conversations? I know I was able to attend Winter Haven, and it was very well attended and seemed to have a lot of good questions from the community. But if you could just give us an update on how those are going.
Yes, ma'am. We have one final one tomorrow here. It'll be both in person and virtual. And so that will help for those who could not attend to get the same information that we've shared at each. Each meeting has consisted of about 35 to 45 minutes of background information, and then we spend the rest of the 2 hours answering questions. Each community has been very specific to their own unique needs or interests. For example, when we were in Davenport, it was very much focused on pedestrian safety because of recent events in those communities. In Haines City, it was focused on the new high school. A lot of questions about Hatchnahaw and building a school out there and the impact to the community. In Medulla, Mulberry, really general questions. It was more of an open conversation. But Winter Haven was probably the latest evening. We went a good hour beyond. We went to almost 9 o'clock. Answered a lot of questions, and also addressed, there's always people who will show and have a personal concern or need that they need to have addressed. And so Ms. Winchester and Mr. Pitts and others will assist me at those events. But I think largely they've gone well. We've gotten great feedback on them. I think they've been relatively well attended. One of the things we're going to try and do is rather than have them hosted or cluster them all at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. We're going to spread them out and try and host maybe one a month or two a month throughout. And we've already heard from some other communities who want us to extend an opportunity to their community, Frostproof, Fort Meade. So we'll be adding those sites. So we'll be able to get a more comprehensive bandwidth of meeting locations next year. But I think all in all, they've gone very well. Feedback's been good, very positive about the trajectory, about our initiatives. And again, the second half is a great opportunity for us to listen and hear about the concerns that stakeholders have and the constituents have. For example, at the very first one that we held, we got great feedback about trying to ensure that more of our teachers are trained in de-escalation strategies and ESE strategies, so that we're working better with our students who have exceptionalities or special needs, who may not be able to self-regulate, and therefore we don't put them in a position where they're going to jeopardize and come in contact with an employer, with others, and as a result get suspended or expelled. So we want to be. I thought it was actually a great conversation to have with several of our community members. So by and large, they've gone very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That date is the actual date for the next one.
May 1st, sorry. May 1st is the next. I thought it was tomorrow. I was hoping. I was hoping it was tomorrow.
No, tomorrow, that's a great segue though, Superintendent Hyde. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., you can come see us take the show on the road because we have State of the County tomorrow morning. So I believe the County Commission will be going first with their chair and county manager, and then Superintendent Hyde and I will go on behalf of the school district, and then Joy Johnson with the Polk Health Department. So, and that will be at the Polk State College Public Safety Center tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And then I just wanted to also say a special thank you to Visit Central Florida because they took on Silver Garland this year. It had been kind of on its way out. They were trying to figure out what to do with it. They revamped it. I know Mr. Nolte and Mr. Sharpless were there as well. It was a beautiful event, very well attended. So a huge thank you to them for revamping that and really giving our students an opportunity to be recognized. It's amazing what some of the kids are doing these days. I know I felt like an underachiever, so it's very cool to hear some of the things that they're doing in their volunteer work. Any other things to come before the board? All right, well, we will adjourn this meeting, and we will be back here this evening.
Thank you.
So take a break.